welcome back to my Enchanted Live series. And as a reminder, this series is not about becoming someone new. It's about learning how to live more fully inside the life that we have and that we've been so blessed to be given. In today's world, I say this quite a bit. Things are so loud. It's about more. It's about optimization. It's about curatedness on all the different aspects of social media, and just I think in our relationships. And so I had developed this Compass program for myself, probably close to a decade ago, and there's 3 key points in it. One of it is around being more of who you are. I call it be you, your magic. The second is be true, be true to your story. And the third is around how do we become more present. And I really want to focus on that last part about what does it mean to be present in a world that has so many different definitions of aliveness around it. And sometimes, I hear a lot of people, and myself included in that, right, in different environments, there's a lot with psychological safety or, these terms around safety that have become quite corporate. And to me, it's not necessarily about safety. It's about something that goes a little bit deeper. And I have always found the word steadiness really resonates with me. And the reason that is because it kind of brings me back to a reminder that being steady is not about bracing for what's to come next. It's not about managing to somebody else's expectations. It's not about the anticipation of what is to follow. And it's certainly not about performing to keep up with the Joneses. In some cases, when I've thought about this sense of steadiness, I really have thought about do I feel good enough and steady enough on the ground that I am in to hold me in this moment? And can I actually be here in this moment? And there have been times where I would say, I asked myself that question, and my answer might have been no, or it probably was no. And that's for different reasons. And I think that that's okay. What I found is that for me, sometimes I'm in these environments and I am anticipating what's next. When I take the moment to think about this steadiness, I find myself coming back to it's not a control thing, it's not anything like that, but it's about this feeling that I can remain within myself while I'm actually living my life. A simpler way to say it is a life that does not require you to leave yourself in order to sustain it. I've been sitting with this for a bit, and I really love it because it is centered around how do I keep myself in this grounded steadiness and embrace all that is around me, just taking it moment by moment. And moment by moment is certainly not hour by hour, meeting by meeting. It's literally I'm having this moment with you. Do you feel safe enough to be here in this moment with me? And do you feel steady enough that your body's holding you and giving you the space to just be? I referenced just before about life and different points that this, sense of steadiness has come up for me. I remember a time when I was working in corporate, the company was going through a merger and acquisition, and I just started to see, different types of behaviors from people. And what I found was that I kind of was just oh my gosh, on edge, what's that next thing? And I was never in a situation like this, right? So it was new, it was uncharted territory. And at the same time, I came to understand that I was taking what everyone was telling me was going to happen next, kind of as the gospel. And what I realized is that in that action of trying to plan, trying to be proactive, trying to think of what was next, trying to think about what did a merger mean, right? I had no idea. I never took a business course in my life, right? But what did that mean? And then kind of coming back to this portion of I don't know what that means, but inside of me, I knew that everything was going to be okay. When I gave myself that sense of taking that pause and that beat to say, let me come back into who I am, not the world, not the situation, not the next activity that was going to happen, not the next action, but just who am I in this situation, and how can I kind of give myself that warm hug and give myself my own equal footing. That was really, really powerful. But it allowed me to do, and I'll never forget the person who kind of pointed out to me, Cheryl, in these times you're really going to see people's true colors, and you're going to realize those people that are coming from a place of like security and understanding and less ego, and then you're going to see all the real yuck. And trust me, I saw both. What I took more so from that is that I didn't need to have this intensity to fight what was happening around me. What I needed was the sense of steadiness to guide myself through in a way that would speak to my values and the way that really speaks to me as an individual. It's just an example of like entering these rooms, feeling this, absorbing everything that's around you. My point is like, how do I take that moment to come back to like, do I feel steady? Do I feel safe? Am I giving myself that warm hug? I recently was in St. Bart's, and I was thinking about this whole story and everything that goes around the sense of being, and I felt as if my mind was racing. I was thinking about all these different things. I was traveling the week before I left on vacation, and then I was coming back in. I was in St. Bart's, and I became obsessed, like legit obsessed about sea turtles, and I started to do some research on them, and I kept coming back to this philosophy of them. I don't know, I just felt so connected to it. And basically, like, I don't know if y'all know about sea turtles, but you should research it. They're beautiful, they're like so graceful. These turtles, they're not rushing, they're not performing for anyone. What I love about them the most is that they have this sense of this internal compass. And for those of you that know me, you know that I have my own compass program. I have something that I live by. It's constantly evolving, and there's new examples that happen all the time. But what I love about it is that they travel like distances across the ocean, and yet through instinct, especially the females, shout out to the women out there, through instinct, right, their magnetic memory takes them back when they're going to give birth, or when maybe that they're going to pass to their original location. So it is said that they've been here since the beginning of time, that they have a way of finding themselves to get back home, and that it is almost like their inner compass, their inner GPS that gets that. So they can travel the lands and they can go to all these places, but yet they return back home. And I was thinking about this series, and I thought, oh my God, what a great, powerful kind of reminder. It was almost like a sign that that's what we're all doing, right? We're all kind of returning to who we are. We're all returning to what is most important for us. As I became literally obsessed about them, what I realized is like, if my inner compass is strong enough, no matter where I go, no matter the different kind of obstacles I face, no matter how far off my path I get, I still have that inner compass to come back home. I still have that inner compass to remind me what it is like to feel steadiness. I still have that inner compass to remind me of what really, really matters in this time and in this existence that I have here on earth. There's a theory called amor fati, which I just love, which means love your fate. And not like in a, oh, this is fine kind of thing, but in a really courageous way. And I really am somebody who, I love life. I love the ups, I love the downs, I love the crazy, I love the not crazy, I love the simple moments. But what I love most of all is that I am so grateful that I have found a way to kind of guide my own path in a way that speaks to me, and that I am almost co-creating my destiny and my reality with the decisions that I make, in how I act, what I choose to do with my time. How do I try, always try to be a better person than I was the day before? In that moment of loving all of those experiences, I find myself walking around and being like, I could be walking Porter over here in Gramercy Park, and I will find myself in my mind just saying, this is just perfect. This is just perfect. I can be grinding my coffee beans and being in that moment, feeling that steadiness, and say, this is perfect. This is perfect. And, I have been having conversations with folks, and I think we all need to find those moments and kind of find that steadiness and find those little kind of magical, magnetic moments that pop up in our day where we can really say, I feel steady, and the moment is just perfect. And perfect doesn't mean perfection. It means perfect for whatever that moment is. It could be not reacting in an argument. It could be taking your time to walk someplace instead of rushing. When you catch yourself with your mind going and you take a moment to realize the birds are singing. And I don't mean to be like, oh, isn't that so lovely, Cheryl? But I do want you to think about is that the attention to focus is so critical. What I mean by that is if we really pay attention and we focus on what is just right here and what is happening right now, you can turn those everyday moments into sacred moments. Sacred moments that fuel you, sacred moments that help you be your best amongst others, moments that show you that there's like magic and beauty all around when we take that moment to pause. And that's kind of my hope with this, right? Is that enchantment to me is not the escape. It's about living in the moment. It is about the inhabiting our existence. It is about feeling yourself in your own body as you're taking your actions or as your mind is thinking about the next thought. I want you to do this with me. I want you to pause and think about where in your life do you feel steady enough to soften and just be who you are? I've shared a couple of mine with you. Where are you still bracing? Sometimes I find myself still bracing. Like sometimes if I know I'm going to go into a difficult conversation, I brace. And I really have tried to work through that and prepare myself and think differently about entering those situations. And then, I've also thought about like, where am I just like managing parts of my life that I could bring more of this steadiness into the equation. And I will tell you, like, the more that I'm talking about it with people, and again, like, this is something I've gone through so many different times, the more that I'm talking about this sense of safety or steadiness, as I like to say it, is like, it kind of just grounds you, right? It kind of just is like, I got this. And it's that mind philosophy that, like, I can do this, being who I am, acting as who I am, contributing as who I am. And that's really good. And that's kind of what the environment, the world, the interaction needs. It needs me to show up with that sacred respect for it, and also to contribute in the way that is going to help someone else feel that steadiness. Here's what I want us to think about. When you have an interaction, right, and you can choose one. I kind of say choose like one of your hard ones, and then choose one of your, not so hard kind of scenarios that you might have in your life. Am I steady enough to be here? And what would it look like to stay in the steadiness? And what would it look like to stay in the steadiness really means, how do I not react or fall back into the race, into the performance, into the, judgment that can be so easy to fall back on. But really, how can I come back to this, again, I call it my warm hug. And how can I come back to that warm hug? And then in turn, how can I help others feel that warm hug when they're with me, and also, give them that platform to feel steady for themselves, and noticing what happens, because I believe that we grow in those moments. I believe that our kind of back to the center, the core of who we are, is where like the magic is. I believe that we are all meant to come back to who we were before everyone told us what we should not, what you can do, what you can't do. You can't be good at this and be good at that. Who cares? You absolutely can. There's a favorite book of mine, The Code of the Extraordinary Mind, that actually speaks to that. It says that you're taught that you can't be creative and analytical. In fact, you can, and it's a really great book. I want to get back to, this topic. I want you to ask yourself those questions, and then I want you to feel, right, what it is like to be that little sea turtle that comes back home and returns and knows where they're going. That's like maybe the best part about it, is that these sea turtles actually know where they're going back to. And it is a beautiful, beautiful way to go out to explore, but to always know where you're returning. And my hope for all of us is that we come back and we return so we can live in that beauty and that magic despite the situation, right? Despite, if it's easy, whether it's hard. My closing here is, know where you feel steady, know where the ground supports you, know where you don't feel steady, and think about, how can I change that dynamic? How can I show up differently to it? How can I give it the sacred attention to focus on it and understand it and spend time with it? When we come back together, we start to think about, how do we now direct our attention? So if I feel steady, now I can direct my attention and kind of live the life that I want to live, even at that next level, right? I can inhabit it so much more. It can feel so much more alive, and in that aliveness is that magic. I hope some of this resonates with you, and I just really want to thank you. I want to thank you for kind of just giving me the space to share these thoughts with you, and to bring you along on a journey that has meant and continues to mean so much to me. And in a place where I don't think that there's enough community of us just giving each other that warm hug and that steady ground, I want you to know that I am that for you. And I feel that from you as well, being my steady ground and that warm hug. So from me to you, here's a warm hug, and I hope I see you the next time.